All right. We are here live streaming. For Today is November 17th. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. And hi everyone. Okay. So first of all, before I start today's talk, I would like to thank everyone who wished me a happy birthday a few days ago. I really appreciate that, and I have been taking some easier days lately. So that's my thank you for. So today I want to have a very quick talk on a paper or correspondence, what they said that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine regarding antibody response and estimated real world effectiveness of this fourth dose 6 months after getting it. This is the fourth Pfizer COVID mRNA vaccine that I'm referring to. So let's take a quick look of the study. Right, so here is the study, and I'll be sure to post a link of the study after we finish streaming so that I guys can go ahead, take a look of it. Now, this study is a prospective cohort study, okay, of healthcare workers in Israel. Now, everyone in Israel got the Pfizer mRNA vaccine. So now it is an observational study, even though I know some people would argue that this is real world data. All right. Okay. So there are several things we need to pay attention first. First, this fourth dose in the study was the original Wuhan strain uh, booster or booster vaccine. Now, we need to know that this versions of the vaccine is no longer available in the US as a booster dose, even though as a primary series, it is still the same one. So keep that in mind. Now, also, second, this study looked at third dose versus fourth dose, but they did not look at hybrid or potential hybrid immunity in the study. And we'll look at it briefly. What are the implications of that? So let's go to the main finding. This is a very short correspondence, basically summarizing some of the key findings. Um, what it says is that antibody levels peaked at approximately 4 weeks and waned to the level seen before the fourth dose by 13 weeks. So what it means in a more layman term is that a person who got the original vaccine, original versions of the booster as their fourth dose, had some enhanced antibody driven protection from infection between 1 to 3 months after the shot. And after that, the protection would return to the baseline before the shot. So let's look at a graph here. All right, so it's a little bit small. I hope you can still see it. Basically, okay, we're looking at panel B, neutralizing antibody titers between about 4 months, okay, 16 weeks to 26 weeks or 6 months or so. We can see that this graph tells us that the antibody titers between third dose and fourth dose are basically the same, all right, or very similar. They also compare second dose, it is clearly higher than getting two doses. So, all right. Now, what is the question? The question is how much of added protections from this fourth dose with this enhanced antibody response. So they did an estimations. Now we won't go into too much of a detail. They have some supplementary appendix in it, but the summary of what they said is that, well, 52%. 50% for the first 5 weeks or so, the fourth dose gave about 52% effectiveness in infection protection. But the catch is after about 15 weeks, okay, 15 to 26 weeks, which is like 4 months and on, the calculated value become negative 2%. What? Okay, so negative 2% meaning that, well, it's basically not any superior to the third dose at all. So it looks like the benefit were gone entirely after months. Right. So uh, that is, you know, a little bit concerning. Okay, you could get that fourth dose, and basically after that 6 months, 4 to 6 months, there's no better than the third dose. So it may seems that there's some type of a plateau that the protection is getting at. Now, the study also listed several limitations, and just to very quickly summarize, well, they said the study population may not be representative because they are healthcare workers. They may be having a higher chance to get exposed to the virus. Now, they do have age groups that are a little bit more even. There's still older populations and younger populations in the healthcare workers. So that, in that sense, a little bit more fair. Second is that, well, possible unrecognized hybrid immunity may have remained. Sorry, got itchy throat. Now, what it means is that if someone had a third dose and they had not been recognized in in the study, they would be having a third dose protections and then an infection, okay, protections, and that hybrid. If that's the case, if a little bit of those patients were in this analysis, then actually we're not really comparing much, or we are comparing the hybrid immunity to fourth dose. And if that's the case, if that's the similar level, that tells us that, well, um, a lot of us may have already had a lot of um, protections without getting the fourth dose. Okay, so that could be an implication, but we don't know. Okay, that would be a suspicion of that. And another limitation is that they don't know how this fourth dose work against severe disease. Okay, severe disease. So they're only looking at plain protection. So well, that's a big limitations, and of course, there's nothing about the side effect. It's include in this study, basically looking at purely from the protection or immunogenicity side of the point of the view. All right. Now, so what are my thoughts is that, well, now we have this bivalent vaccine, and last week we talked about how Pfizer released a press release that is not peer reviewed. They said it produced 4 times higher antibodies in people that are in the older age, 50 or 50 above, okay, compared to the original vaccine booster. Now, I know some people may think that if you start with more antibodies, it may or it will wane slower, so it is better. Okay, that would be a common thought. But look at this graph here. All right, so now we don't know for sure, but look at this graph where this purple line is the fourth dose, and the third line is the blue line is the third dose. Look at, yeah, the fourth dose does, or it did boost at a higher level of compared to the third dose, which is very similar to what Pfizer described with their new bivalent vaccine. But look at the waning effect. It's very rapid. It goes down a lot quicker than the third dose and eventually levels off. So eventually levels off. So my suspicion is that if you had a bivalent vaccine, it will go up, okay, maybe even higher than this original versions for those. But higher doesn't mean it may last longer. It may go down a little bit slower, but probably by 6 months, we would likely to see something very similar. Now, unfortunately, we don't have that data. Okay, the bivalent vaccine in human experience it's only a few months old, about 2 to 3 months old right by now, and we don't have any published data at this point to have that type of comparison. This is at 6 months. So in 3 months, we may know a little bit more, all right, about that. Now, um, I think, it is fair to say that if someone wants to have continuous protection from infection, no infection at all, like, any infection is bad, then that person would need a booster every 3 to 4 months. And who would be these people? Definitely people who are immunocompromised, uh, at the elderly, maybe, okay, because infections could be very dangerous for them. They need that kind of protection, but unfortunately, it looks like they need it very frequently, maybe even less than 3 months, because a lot of the study are showing that older people or elderly or immunocompromised people had a lower antibody to begin with after any of the boosters. So, to protect against any infection, it's actually quite difficult. It's not impossible, but quite difficult with just the vaccine alone at this point. So, to just wrap up, the study is that they look at immunogenicity, they estimated the effectiveness. They didn't talk about T cells at all. Okay, yeah, I know. Jason asked in the comment, no, no, no T cells. Okay, so again, T cells is also more responsible for a long-term or protections against severe disease. So there's nothing about that at this point. So what is the value for this fourth dose, regardless of it being a bivalent or being original? It's it's short term. The fair word to say it is short term. Now, am I surprised to see this result? I'm not surprised. I'm not particularly surprised because we have seen something very similar. How that third dose wane over time, and the conclusion is by 3 months, 4 months. At the time is we knew that it's pretty much gone, regardless if you get a new variants or not. So I mean, that's very unfortunate. We have, we, about 3 years ago, 2 years ago now, when it first came out, about this time, they were saying, oh, it's 90 some percent. We really had hoped that they could last longer. But after 2 years, we knew that these things, provide some protection, or their highest protection is within that 3 months period or so. And we've all seen a lot of people who had their latest booster and still got infected. Okay. So that is the fact now, we have to recognize. And for those of us in the US, now I know other countries may have other pricings, okay, or it may have the vaccine may be, paid with a different mechanism, perhaps a national healthcare system. But for those of us in the US, the bigger implication is that when this vaccine goes to private market in 2023, which is 2 months away, with a price tag of over $100, it would be tricky for insurance to decide how many COVID vaccines to reimburse per person per year. And it really depends on what is the goal for the general population now. Is it protection from all infections or protection from severe disease? That is some questions that I think people in the decision making place would need to decide, and need to be very transparent to us. Um, so again, this is observational study that we're looking at. It would be nice to have some clinical trial data, but unfortunately, uh, we looks like we are moving away from clinical trial, at least for COVID vaccine at this point now. All right. So I think moving forward, we all need to think about our own health very individually, in addition to CDC recommendation. CDC recommendations is that, well, everyone go get a booster. Okay. is your goal to protect against all infection? Then yes. If your goal is to protect against severe disease, that question that is you need to think about for yourself. All right. So that's really what I want to mention about the study. Thank you for everyone that had been, it's from all over the world, Canada, North Carolina. Thank you very much for the. All right. So, Jim. Okay. Jim asked what happened to Novavax. Now, Novavax, it got a little bit more tricky now. First of all, I don't know anyone personally have gotten Novavax. Another thing, it's there is a looks like there is a little bit more warning against in regards to myocarditis, and I think some European country, I forgot which European countries now are not really recommending Novavax for the younger population too, because out of the myocarditis concern. So it looks like myocarditis is not particularly an mRNA vaccine effect. It could be tying to what the component is at this point. Um, so that's the small update on Novavax on top of my head. Okay, recombinant trypsin enzymes. Okay, so uh, thank you for asking. I'm not too familiar with the recombinant trypsin enzyme particularly, but recombinant technology certainly we can introduce some of those in future topic there. Um, just to to conclude a little bit here, that I know many of you probably don't think about COVID as much. I certainly don't think about COVID as much at this point in time now. Officially, the pandemic or the emergency is maybe ending soon. Okay, in the U.S., some countries may have ended. Okay, like I said, depends on the official now these days. But I know some people still do. So I think moving forward, I'll be doing most of my COVID small updates in the live streams. And I know I forgot who, but someone asked me about how I see about, what's my viewpoint about the children COVID vaccine or booster. What is my point of view? I can certainly talk about that in some future small streaming discussions. So in terms of my Sunday videos, we'll be moving to a more general health topic, focusing on what my channel focus now, learning to live a healthier life, such as how to correctly use supplements and diet to boost immunity in general, and maybe taking less medications if we don't have to, right? If we don't have to take medications or we are taking it wrong, right? I want to point it out. If you are new here, just joining the channel, haven't joined the channel for a very long time, I have a background in pharmacy and pharmaceutical science. I am a registered pharmacist as well as assistant professor in pharmaceutical science and teaching in a pharmacy school in the US. So my whole life is about drugs, but I'm not a big advocate for drug. Okay. Yes, I'm not. I really think we're using too much drug, and so I would like to bring this message to you all, and just to to decide with scientific papers to back up my claims if we are really using too much drugs. All right. Just thank you, old school, for coming. I really appreciate that. Um, yes, COVID. I think it's on our mind. I agree that COVID, particularly a lot of the long COVID things, or there were still we're trying to understand more. Or some also long term side effect with the COVID vaccine. So I'll be still doing COVID updates. I'm not dropping that. I'm not dropping that. Definitely, at least for the time being. And like I said, looking at the more lifestyle topics. All right. Thank you, Luke. Again, I know you guys are all the best viewers. Okay. So that's all for today's short talk. And leave me some comment. See if you like this type of a talk. I kind of like it lately because I got to see some of you in this real time action, so I can immediately give you some response if I can. I like this format. So I may be seeing you more in this stream. Okay, that's enough for the small talk, and hope to see you again in my regular videos. And thank you very much. Take care. If you haven't had your dinner or haven't had your breakfast or anything, if you're in other side of the globe, then go ahead, enjoy your day, and enjoy your evening. Take care. Bye.